I'm Monique Sharp, and this is Get Sharp, where I'm lucky enough to chat with people just like you on turning fear into focus and leveling up their lives. Nicole Brydson went from a seated 10K runner and F45 coach to a partial paraplegic after a shock spinal bleed completely changed her life. Nicole's inspiring journey back to walking unassisted is an incredible demonstration of the power of choosing positivity. If you need proof that mindset matters, this is the episode for you. We've been chatting for so long about your story, like years.
It's nearly, it's 4 years in July.
Wow. I would have finished my healing in 2021 and I would have come to Sydney that year, and I think I was still doing juices or something.
You were?
And I met you doing
Bowling.
Yeah.
So that was pre-paraplegia.
For everybody that's listening or watching, can you take us back to the reason that we're on the call?
Basically, I was previously super fit, super healthy, F45 coach, and then one day everything stopped. So it was in COVID, and it was when everything was shut down. One morning I got up, I was totally fine, went downstairs, had some breakfast, and I was going to go paddleboarding with my friends. So I had my cozy on and I went upstairs to get my phone, and all of a sudden I felt like I was stabbed in my back. I obviously thought that I'd pulled a muscle, done something funny. So it was more than anything I'd ever had before, but I didn't think it was going to be anything. So I got a heat pack. I was putting the heat pack on. I got cold. I was laying down, and then the pain started radiating from my back, and it was kind of going all through my body, and it was through my rib cage. And each time I was breathing, I was finding it harder and harder. For a little while, I was kind of laying in my bed in the fetal position, trying to wait for this pain to kind of go away and subside, but it didn't. It started getting worse, and every time I was breathing I was basically screaming, and I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit or do anything. So my daughter called the ambulance. By the time the ambulance got here, I was in excruciating amounts of pain, so they gave me some kind of pain relief to get me to a point where they could kind of observe me. And at that point, they got me in the stretcher and they were kind of getting me to move. My left leg just started to kind of go a little bit, and that sent alarm bells to them. They were saying, this is progressing, quick, we need to get her in the stretcher, we need to get me to hospital. And they wheeled me out of my house in a stretcher. And I remember saying to them, oh, this is so embarrassing, this is so embarrassing. And the ambulance officer said, well, you obviously need to be here, you don't need to be embarrassed. So my daughter came out with the 2 bags. She went to get into the ambulance and they said, I'm sorry, you can't come, because it was right in COVID conditions, so I had nobody with me. They got me to the hospital, and once I was there, I can't remember exactly, but basically they were moving me from the hospital stretcher to the bed. Anyway, they said, okay, move your legs over here, and I couldn't. When I couldn't do that, there were ambulance officers, nurses and doctors and everybody. It was like an emergency. They actually, I don't know if I should say this, but they kept saying to me, and when I was in the ambulance, have you had the COVID injection? Have you had the COVID vaccine? And I'm saying, no, I haven't, no, I haven't. Also, when I got to the hospital, they asked me repeatedly, and they said that I was presenting like a vax patient.
Wow.
Then I was fully paralysed, and they were taking me in for MRIs. Still, because it was COVID, I had nobody with me. So it was quite scary, but I was trying to talk myself, it's okay, you've got this is okay. But at the same point, I knew it was pretty serious. Then they came and said to me that I was going to be a paraplegic and they could do this operation that may or may not help me. This was out of the box. They were to try their best. And I had to sign, yes, I know that this operation might not work. Yes, I know, whatever's going to happen. I signed it and I knew that I was in deep shit.
When you were signing the forms, had they given you a diagnosis at that point, or had they not given you a clear indication?
They had said to me I'd had a bleed in my back, that had travelled into my spinal column. They said, like, obviously you're paralysed from the ribs, you're an incomplete paraplegic.
Okay, so a freak type of incident that had affected a blood vessel.
I had a subcutaneous epidural hemorrhage in my back,
Right.
a freak thing, of the size of if you had have got stabbed or shot. But I was also on blood thinner for another reason. So whether the blood thinner started it, it definitely spread it. So it spread like wildfire into my spinal column.
Do you feel comfortable talking about why you were on the blood thinner?
Sure. When I was about 34, I had a mini stroke. And it was a random thing as well. One day I was just at sports watching my son, and I remember I was talking to this guy, and I'm thinking, oh, it's really hard to talk. And then I started getting tingles all down my left arm, and I knew something was going on. I was going to go up to the hospital, but then it settled down. So I just thought, oh, pinched a nerve. It's a random type of thing. I happened to have an appointment at the doctor the next day for something else. And bear in mind, at that point in time, I was super duper fit. I was a seated 10K runner. So I went to the doctor for something else and I said, oh, I should just mention this to you. This really weird thing happened to me yesterday. And he said, yes, that is rather weird. Humour me and go and get an MRI. So I went and got an MRI and it worked out I had a PFO, which is a little hole in my heart, and I'd had a blood clot, and the blood clot had moved through the little hole up to the back of the brain, and I had like a little white spot on the back of the brain. There were two options. They said you can either have a heart operation to close the hole off, or we can put you on blood thinner. Now, because you've had the blood clot, we think you're better off on blood thinner. The year before the whole paraplegia thing happened, I met a friend who was a heart surgeon, and he said to me, what on earth are you on this poison for? Get the heart fixed. It's a really simple operation. I was actually supposed to have this heart operation a month before all this happened. So that was the reason for the blood thinner. But I think stress, like most diseases, are in your body, and I was really stressed. My dad passed away 3 months prior to motor neuron disease. I nursed him with my mum for the last 6 weeks as well. So I think it was stress, overload, explosion, like a body explosion. I cannot cope with any of this anymore. So yeah, so I think it was stress and the blood thinner.
Okay, that's a really good background. Thank you for sharing that. Having somebody so close to you like your dad pass is an extremely emotionally challenging event.
It is a cruel, cruel disease because basically the person,
Yeah.
bit by bit, first they can't use their hands, then they can't use their legs, then they can't speak, then they can't eat, and it's just horrific.
And when your dad did pass, did you have a network around you that you could lean on a bit for that, or how did you process that emotion?
Well, I did. We actually, like for the last couple of months, we actually had a very nice time. Like basically, we would get his things out, he would go through, and like he couldn't speak, but I could kind of understand him, if you know what I mean. It was a nice time, but then it was also an awful time at the same time.
Yes.
But yeah, I did have a network around me. It wasn't like I couldn't cope with it. It was just a lot.
I can understand why that would be a lot for you, especially, that being your dad. Take me back now to being in the hospital, and you mentioned you were going through the doorway and you were looking at the ceiling as you were getting wheeled in. You'd been diagnosed with the bleed in your spine. You'd signed the papers and you were talking yourself through how you could make it through such an ordeal.
So I woke up in emergency and I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know where I was. I had tubes out of my neck, like heart lines, and then I had tubes in my hands. I had a big bag of ketamine um, jammed onto my leg, and I was in another planet. I actually thought I was being held hostage somewhere.
Oh, wow.
It was horrific. And because it was COVID, I had no one with me. So normally you would have a family member reassuring you they were there, this is okay, this is what's happened. But I didn't have that. I did get like my mum on the phone or my kids on the phone, and they would talk to me. And, my mum would say, this has happened to you, you're in the hospital. But then as soon as I get off the phone, because the ketamine had me so disorientated, I thought each time the nurse was coming in to give me my medications, I thought they were poisoning me. I was sending screenshots, I don't even know how I did it, of my
Oh,
location, and they'd say the same thing, Nicole, you're in the hospital. So I was like it for 4 days. How I actually clicked out of it, each day in ICU you have your own nurse, and I was having the nurse introduced for the day, and I looked at her face and I knew that I knew her. And see, the whole thing as well, they all looked like aliens because they were all in the full PPE gear. So they had
yeah.
like a shield from here to here. Every part of
Yeah.
their body was covered. So it was like I was in some Star Wars thing. Anyway, and I asked the nurse, could she take the mask off? And she took it off and she said, oh, Nicole, I
Oh,
heard it
bless
was
her.
you in here. She said, if you don't want me to look after you, I understand. And she was actually a member at F45. And as soon
Oh,
as I saw her, I snapped
hope.
out of my psychosis, and then I knew what was going on. Then after that, they got me out of ICU and they put me in a room, and I was basically in this room by myself, full vegetable, and I couldn't even roll.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. I couldn't roll over in bed. I couldn't do anything. And I was just like, what the actual F? This is not my life. I cannot believe this. I went into a bit of a dark place for about 24 hours. I was like, this is it. Like, but it was my worst nightmare, not being able to move, because that was my life. I was super fit, I was super healthy. When they came in to give me the medication, I'm like, can you just kill me now? I kind of came out of that and I thought, I'm an only child. My dad has just passed away. I'm very close with my mother as well, and I thought she's not going to cope. I've got 4 children. I need to do this. And something just came over me, and I went from the depths of depression into, I've got this.
I think that was your fight or flight.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if it was me making a real conscious decision. I think I did, but then I also think I had help from the universe, basically, and I just got my shit together. I
Hmm.
had a room full of flowers and cards and
Oh,
love and, beautiful messages from everybody. Every morning when I woke up, I'd kind of meditate, imagining myself in my normal day-to-day life, walking around Bondi, going for a swim, having a cup of coffee, like literally step by step, doing everything. And then as it was in COVID, Leah, she was doing a class every morning. And the class basically goes through mindset meditation, grounding, breath work, strength work. And the strength work is mind strength work. So she might do like an arm hold. So you have to hold your arms out straight like that. It sounds easy, but when you're doing it for about 11 minutes, it gets really
hard.
hard. And the process is to sit through being uncomfortable and get past the side of uncomfortable, because that's when your brain kind of clicks over. So that was actually very nice and supportive. And then I also
Beautiful.
have a friend who's a kinesiologist, and she sent me all these appropriate sprays, and I would spray the sprays over my legs saying the mantras, and I'd also massage my legs for hours and hours a day with the sprays, saying the mantras and talking to my legs like, I know you can do this, we can do this.
Let's take one step back. You were in the hospital and, you've gone into fight mode because you're like, nah, that's it. I've got people to, I've got responsibilities and I love my family and I want to be there for them. And it's important that I'm there for them. And also probably, just knowing you, drawing a bit of strength, having gone through such a challenging time, losing your dad, you didn't want your family to then feel that loss for you.
Exactly.
So that strength, maybe your dad was there with you,
Oh, he
that
was.
energy to help you to come back. And
Definitely.
so that terrible fear that you had, not being able to move below your waist, like, that's overwhelming. And it's so impressive that you were able to turn your mindset at that point and go, actually, I don't accept this.
Yeah.
And I will make my life great. And I think that's so inspiring about hearing your story, just that one point of turning.
Yes.
That is so inspiring that you were able to go, okay, I know this is what I've been told, but I don't choose this.
Exactly.
Like, that always gets me. So I feel like I want to call that out in this discussion as, something that people really need to hear.
Yeah.
No matter what you get presented with, you can still make the choice at that point, at your lowest, and go, okay, well, I either accept this and I'm going to feel down, or I choose not to feel down. I choose to try and make this the best possible outcome that I can. And the fact then that you're sitting there massaging your legs, talking kindly to yourself, taking those great words from those people around you, working on mindset, having the kinesiology spray, the belief in that, the healing properties of that, and even just the connection, massaging your legs, encouraging that blood flow and waking up those nerve endings, and doing that physically and connecting that with that thought process that you were having. That's incredibly powerful. Talk me through the first points where you actually started to see the change then physically in your body, because your mind is already on the ball. Your mind is already like,
That's right.
yes, we're moving, we're going to do this.
So I think it was on about day 6. And each time I got more movement in my legs was when I was doing this process. Visualization, massaging, mantras, and then I would think to myself, I think I could move my toe. And then my toe moves. Oh, I think I can move my foot more. My left leg didn't move for ages. That was the first sign of paralysation down the left leg, and it was the last one to come back. So I could actually move my toe, move my foot. This was over several days. And then I could move my leg up, and then I could lift my foot up while the left leg still couldn't do anything. And I remember I used to go, come on, left leg, come on, left leg. And then bit by bit, the left leg would catch up. It still is the weakest of the two, but it was when I was doing the talking that I got movement.
And what did the doctors say at that point, before you had decided to make those choices for yourself mentally and how you wanted to handle that? What was their advice that they had given you in terms of your healing journey?
I would say to the doctors, do you think I'm going to be able to walk again? And they said, we really don't know. We've done our best. See how you go, basically. And then there was this lovely physiotherapist. He was like in his last year of uni, so doing the prac or whatever. And he reminded me very much of one of my boys. I said to him, what do you think? Do you think I'm going to be able to walk again? And he said, well, that depends how strong your mind is. And I went, oh, in the bag then. There was hope, but I think the language that medical professionals use is not the best for the patient. So say I was a T10 Asia C incomplete paraplegic was what was written on my hospital notes, but the words a recovering spinal injury is so much better than that. So, yeah, I think the wording, it's very important to not attach yourself to what is presented to you. I'm not going to be a paraplegic. I'm recovering. And I think the words that you say to yourself, obviously, are very important. And I did this thing with myself. I don't know if I consciously did it, but I felt like I was also the coach of myself. So I didn't attach myself to what was happening. In my mind, I was coaching myself. Right, you can do this. Right, okay, push further. With the physio, I always wanted to do the next thing up. So, yeah, I think speaking to yourself in a positive manner and light and being your own cheer squad is very important too. One thing though, even though it was very hard not having my family there, it would have been very horrific for people to see me, and I would have had, oh, Nicole, I'm so sorry. Oh, this is awful. So I actually could control the narrative and the energy that was going out. I didn't want people speaking in a negative way. I wanted people speaking positively. So one day I got like 350 messages on my Instagram, but I didn't actually read any of them because I knew that they would be wishing me the best, but I knew it would also maybe come across, negative for you. So I did a post on my story and I said, thank you so much for all the lovely messages. I can't answer them all because I'm busy healing. I'm going to put like a update on my page every day. So I only put positive things. It was also controlling the energy around. So it wasn't, poor Nicole's in the hospital. It was, wow, she's actually going well. People in hospital need to heal. They need all that time to heal.
It sounds like you needed more of that space so that you could create the direction that you wanted to take with it.
Yeah.
Because you are a strong person. People always say that to me too. Oh, you're such a strong person.
Yeah.
I think you can only do it because you're a strong person. It's like, well, no, I get my strength because, yes, exactly. I get my strength from my choices.
Yep.
And I make those choices because I know that there are light and dark phases or events in life, and I still choose to see what I'm grateful for so that I can find a path forward, because if you don't, I just feel like some of those things are so overwhelming.
When you accept, this is the prognosis of whatever, and then you go, oh, well, I've got this, or this happened to me because of whatever, it's making a choice. No, this is not how it's going to be. The other thing as well was not going back. Oh, I used to be this, or I used to be able to do that.
So important, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because you're never going to be what was, you're only what is now.
That's right.
And how you see yourself in the now.
That's right. When I got out of ICU and after I kind of started my whole process of everything, I felt my dad in the room, and I actually had a whole wall of angels, and I felt it, and it was like I could see it, but like it wasn't there, but it was kind of there. And I had two of my girlfriends, one who's quite psychic connected, whatever. Anyway, she said, babe, you have got so many angels around you. And I went, oh, I know. And they were just there. And it was nearly like I was in some Club Med, because I had the hospital bed and then there was a special, and I had all the flowers and I had the fruit bowls. And yeah, there was a special wheelchair that was like a lounge, and I had this beautiful big window and it was really sunny. And I said, can I be put in this wheelchair because I want to kind of sunbake? And I'm laying there with my white, because I still had a hospital gown on, don't know why then. I had that pulled up and I had the sun coming on. I was eating grapes and I was playing Bob Marley.
I've never heard anybody say, like, compare a hospital area, especially when they've been given partial paraplegic diagnosis. I've never
Yeah.
had anybody tell me in that situation they feel like the hospital is Club Med. You
Because
are the best.
I had the sun, the flowers, the fruit, and then this lady came into me and she went, why are you always so happy? And I said,
Ah,
what do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean? And she said, look at you, what's happened to you? You're so young. You probably won't walk again. And I said, no, I'm going to walk again. I knew I was just like in this phase, this process, and I just had to go through it. And I was going to do all these things and I was going to be okay. But in saying that, I still had up and downs. I managed to swing a private room um, probably half the time. I had it set up like it was beautiful. I had crystals everywhere and I had books and I had all my sprays. And I kind of thought that this setup that I had was the reason that I was healing so well. And on a Monday, the nurse said, oh, we need to move you out of this room now. You're going into the share room. And I just said, no, I'm not, and just ignored her. And then the next nurse came in, and this came up day after day. And then I had the head nurse probably on the Thursday.
you got in
And,
trouble.
yeah, and my neurologist. And she said, Nicole, you need to get out of this room. We need it for another patient. And I had a meltdown because I think that I thought that everything was happening because of this room. So I got in my wheelchair and I was like, I'm out of this place. I'm going to get myself transferred somewhere else. And I had a bit of a 2-year-old tantrum. I wheeled myself out of the hospital, out of Prince of Wales, down the kind of steep incline
Oh
out
my
of Prince.
gosh.
And then I got there and I wheeled myself over to, it was like a little grass bit with a bench. And I'm like, all right, what are you going to do now, Nicole? I can't walk. I can't do anything. I could walk assisted a little bit at that time, so I had to get myself, because I couldn't wheel myself back up the hill. It was too steep. So I had to get myself out of my wheelchair, hobble around on the back of my wheelchair, tiny little baby steps back into the Prince of Wales Hospital, wheeled myself back in, put myself in my new cubicle, had a little tantrum that night, and then I got back on with it and apologised for my tantrum. Yeah,
We've all
yeah,
got to have those moments. Say, hey, you've got to get sick of
yeah,
yourself a little bit.
yeah, yes.
Get out that energy.
That was interesting as well because it wasn't what was around me, it was what was inside me. So then I replicated that same thing there. And I was fine sharing, little spoilt Nicole. Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting time.
So, what was the point like of your movement capacity when you were able to leave the hospital?
Walking with a crutch, but
Hmm.
still with, lots of things like I've got clonus in my legs. Clonus is when the message goes from the brain to the legs, it gets a bit scrambled and you kind of bounce. And then I've had quite a bit of spasticity in my legs as well.
So, coming home, that must have been a massive adjustment to now need to consider how you can move around your environment and how your movement would have affected things you were quite used to being able to do before. But you already had said that you didn't think back to who you were before. You were just thinking, this is how I am now.
But also not even staying in this is how I am now. I'm healing. I'm still healing.
Yes.
Because when people say to me, how are you going? And I always say, I'm getting there. Because I had another setback. I don't know if I told you. So I was actually walking quite well. And I got to the point where I could actually walk outside without the crutch. And I used to get my calf muscles Botoxed every 3 months, and that would stop with the clonus and the tremoring. I had a different neurologist Botox my calf muscles, and I don't know if he over Botoxed them or did them in the wrong spot, but it really limited my walking. My knee blew up and it was very swollen and it was very sore. And this was a couple of months after the Botox, and I was going in as an outpatient. They did an MRI on my knee, but I didn't actually see the report. The neurologist read it to me and he said, look, there's really nothing wrong with your knee. A bit of wear and tear, there's a tiny tear in your meniscus, but it doesn't warrant the swelling. He said, I think you've got rheumatoid arthritis, and sent me off for all the tests for that. In the meantime, I had gone to emergency, I don't know, 2 or 3 times because it got so bad that I couldn't even walk, and they would drain my knee, and still under the care of Prince Wells, there's nothing really wrong with your knee. So I went and got my own MRI, and I had a chronically torn and desiccated medial meniscus horn, lateral meniscus horn, and full cartilage loss. The orthopedic surgeon said, when you have no cartilage, your only option is a full knee replacement. So obviously, after all the paraplegia stuff, and then I'm going into this, and same thing, I made the choice, and I'm like, no, I don't want to get a full knee replacement. So I started to do my own research, and I came across stem cell therapy. And I also found out it's really good for neurological conditions. They do it in all these really odd pockets around the world, like Panama, Mexico, Thailand, Germany. So I'd had a couple of meetings with different people, and I had decided on getting stem cell therapy in Thailand because the quality of stem cell that they're providing was very high, and also the cost was a lot less, because kind of Panama and Mexico are the ones that, you know, Joe Rogan speaks about, so they've all put their prices up. A friend of mine said, a sports physician, Nathan Gibbs, who was the sports physician for the Swannies and the Wallabies and everything, he had done stem cell therapy on the plays. I wanted somebody just to bounce off what I was doing. So I made an appointment, and I said, I'm going to Thailand for stem cell therapy. He said, what type? And I said, umbilical cord. And he said, that's like putting liquid gold in your body. So I flew to Thailand last May, had stem cell therapy, which is kind of a year process because it becomes highly active between 3 and 6 months. I went from basically not being able to walk, like my work's only like 500 metres down the road, but I had to get an Uber. Now I'm back to walking extremely well with the crutch.
So good.
Yeah, but I've also been doing a whole range of things. So it's kind of like the culmination of everything coming together, because a couple of months ago, I kind of went back into the thought process of, I need to treat this like I'm rehabbing. I'm spending at least a couple of hours every day doing things. So I've been doing physio, I've been doing massage, I've got compression boots, the Norman Tech compression boots. So I do an hour in those every day. I've got the red light and the near infrared light panel. So I do that every day. I do it on my back, I do it on my knee, I do it on my face. I was seeing my energy healer. So I am doing basically everything I can because I want this knee thing fixed. And
Yes. Is it improving?
it's improving. So, yeah, I've jumped up another level, so that's good. I know that I'm healing. I'm getting there, I'm healing, but if I don't do all the things that I need to do, it's not going to work. I also get PRP with Nathan Gibbs every month because that's to help the stem cells kind of stimulate and work harder.
You've done such fantastic research to be able to find the things that work for you that aren't as perhaps mainstream, but you have found the things that you're aligned to, that you can put your belief behind, and you are regular with them, and you're positive in your mindset, in your approach to them. If you were speaking to somebody who was going through a similar challenge to the one that you were experiencing,
Yep.
a really challenging diagnosis, perhaps that's what it is, what would be the key things that you'd like to share with them in order to help them move forward in a positive way?
Whatever you're diagnosed with is not you. You are not cancer. You are not a paraplegic. You are not whatever. It's a situation. Yes, okay, this is what everybody's saying, or this is what I have, but I'm not going to be that. I'm going to deal with what I need to deal with, do what you need to do to help whatever the illness is, but it's not you. I would say acknowledge it, but don't be it. Don't let it be your life.
Do you feel as well like that you make a level of peace with who you are inside and the world around you as well? I know from my experience, there was a point I remember specifically where I felt that peace, and therefore it didn't matter what my future looked like at all. I accepted that I didn't have control of any aspect of my future, but I knew that whatever my future was going to be, I was going to look for the things that I loved about it. And I think when I got to that place, I was able to turn a corner and my journey started to become a lot better. Did you have a similar type of experience?
So that was when I was in the hospital room and I had all of these things around me and I made the
The
choice. But
angel.
then I had the angels and I was like, okay, all right, let's do it. And that's when I said the Club Med thing because I didn't have a care in the world. That's how I felt. I was laying there. I knew that yes, this is all happening, but I knew and I felt peace and I trusted that everything was going to be as it was going to be, but I was okay.
Mm. And that
Yeah.
that wasn't the ketamine speaking. You were off
No,
the
no,
ketamine at this
no, no,
point.
no.
This
That
is
that
all
was in
you.
ICU. That was in ICU. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But it
Just
is.
want to make
It's
that
like
clear.
yeah, it's like trusting and peace and letting go of I can't control this situation fully and not being angry at the situation. I relinquished this kind of thing where I had to fully control something and I had peace in it, but then I just did everything that I knew that I needed to do to get out of the situation, but in a calm, peaceful way.
It sounds so contradictory that peace brings power, but it really does.
Totally. Because if you are angry, and you hear this when people have things, I'm so angry. Why? That's not going to help you healing. It's like accepting the situation, but not being the situation. Also trusting yourself to know that you can do it without control or anger.
Interestingly, I had this conversation just yesterday with an holistic psychologist who was saying the most important aspect of overcoming a negative state is that trust within yourself. And once you can do that, then you can usually move through any situation that comes towards you. If you stop trying to control everything externally and just realize
That's
you're
right.
the only person you can trust. It's
That's
so
right.
powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love speaking to you. It's so motivating. I can't wait
Yes.
for people to hear your story. And I trust that every day you're still motivating and bringing beautiful energy to those people around you.
I get energy off people. I love positive, nice connections.